Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is keeping well. A big thank you to the Children in Lockdown Project team, Ruanti, Malit, Pumi. Thank you very much for doing this. Before I begin my talk, I am saying thanks to the many artists, scholars, and mentors whose research, resistance, and creativity have paved the path for me. I do this talk as a offering of gratitude and acknowledgement of knowledge passed on. Our bodies are thinking. Our bodies hold information, hold politics, memories, stories, senses, and are a powerful source of knowledge. The body, our bodies, can be seen as tangible movers for consciousness, as a tool with which we perform and achieve physicalities of exchanges, such as sports, and as a system that is vital for maintaining health and well being. Your body even plays a role in thinking about languages, philosophy, and mathematics, as many emerging scientific research shows today. The body is also constantly dreaming, a process that our conscious mind has not yet understood or recognized or has simply forgotten. In short, the body helps us to experience the world. How you move your head, your arm, your leg, or how you bend indirectly influences the way you observe, understand, think, and remember. As many scientists now say, without information from your body, your brain and mind would be unable to process the situation or the condition you're in properly. That's how entangled the body and mind are. As Lisa Feldman Barrett of Northeastern University says, your very perception of the world is shaped by the brain reading your body and its movement. But how many of us think with our bodies? How many of us move to think consciously? Not for movement's sake, but to move our bodies in as many different ways as possible. How many of us know how to think with our bodies? How many of us listen to our bodies? As a dance artist and educator, I think with my body and through the active state of embodying. This is because dance and our movement is the most direct route to the truth of oneself, in my experience. A truth that dives into what's happening in me right now kind of truth. This is because our bodies are our primary instruments with which we absorb, understand, refine, and create, combining the physical with mental thinking that makes dance not only possible, but also powerful. Thus, the vigorous investigation of the body's experiences and stories that live inside are at the forefront of my interest. As how I was taught, my creative and teaching practice offers dance and movement as a method for thought, a bodily inquiry towards reimagining possibilities and extending beyond oneself, enacting experiential and self-reflective investigations. Because the human body was made to move. It is in the doing, in the moving, in the actioning do we learn. But what does this mean in a day and age where a pandemic is harboring distance, separation, less movement, and increasingly amplifying our social challenges within constraints of space and time? Not only are we forced to collaborate with our differences, where indirect and direct participation and practices are no longer bound to the nation state and their collective communities, but also we are confronted with our own limitations, our own faults as human species. As a result, movement arts become a space where radical imagination is filled with possibilities to inspire hope and action. What moves us in our bodies as much as in our minds? What moves us in theory as much as in practice? When the pandemic first hit, I was in the United States, and like many teachers and artists, had to shift my practices to this one-dimensional platform, which I'm grateful for, especially during a time like this, and had to reimagine how I moved and thought with my body. I returned to Sri Lanka and was in a government quarantine camp for 21 days, restricted to a room with barely any light coming in, and then in a restricted room at home for another 14 days after. During this time, my body was tested and was feeling things I could not yet understand, or I wasn't ready to confront it, really. But I began to find ways to move within the restricted space, challenging myself to be expansive within the limitations. As an educator, it was important that I understood, felt, and learned how to move during these times so that I could really understand and figure out how best to guide and support the students I was working with. So I kept moving. I kept moving through stillness, through emotions, through silence. And the conversations with the students alongside what I was experiencing myself in quarantine was what sparked my deep desire to discover, well, how can I fulfill my potential as an educator to best support children and youth who really need help during these times, at the same time keep myself healthy and well during a global pandemic. My search led me to the vulnerable children in the UDA housing complexes. Since March, we know that children around the world have been dealing with a range of often strong emotions related to the COVID-19 pandemic. And while some children have access to online schooling and perhaps a living room to dance or move in, there are many without either, let alone the means to survive due to social and economic challenges. We know this. In a world pre-COVID where moving our bodies was not as important, the pandemic has only furthered our betrayal to our bodies, dishonoring our potential as humans. I came across the vulnerable children of the housing communities through an article in the papers in 2020. And one of the residents had quoted in the article, "We are imprisoned in order to protect everyone from COVID, but the end result would be the creation of a cluster of individuals with severe mental and psychological problems," end quote. These housing communities, due to their population density, are identified as high risk for COVID-19. And therefore, attempts to curtail movement have involved measures such as restricting residents to their 400 to 500 square feet of space, some with as many as 8 to 10 residents, children included. I reached out to Write to the City Sri Lanka, an online initiative by the Center for Policy Alternatives that aims to broaden the discussion on development, housing, and displacement in Sri Lanka, to figure out, well, what is it that I and the organization I'm a part of called Mesh Ground, which is a platform for movement arts, could do to support and help and be connected with these communities. And that was when I was introduced to Avanka Fernando, a researcher and academic member of the University of Colombo, who in fact is a part of the panel discussion today, and so you'll hear more from her. But in short, her doctoral research centers around these housing communities, and so she shed great light into the complexities of challenges faced by both children and adults alike because of the pandemic. These communities live in extremely tiny spaces, and as a result, it's like they are in each other's faces, propelled into each other's situations, their social gatherings, their religious observances, and their conflicts, including situations of psychological and physical violence. Imagine being a child in this situation. It's hard. I can never fully understand or know what it's like to go through what they're going through. But it was clear they need something to keep them going. We all need something to keep us going during times like this. They need support, guidance, and knowledge. But I also knew I couldn't do it alone, and I shouldn't do it alone. Reimagining Otherwise is the movement project, a research project that I, alongside Hope Rajasinghe, Shunaka Ranatunga, Ayumi Fernando, and Eva Priyanka Regina, created in the hopes of doing something for these children with the support of the Children in Lockdown project. We are a collective of dance artists and movement educators who believe that education and artistry should be expanded across various dimensions through unconventional modes of learning in a day and age where radical change is required. In a day and age where understanding our body, our identity, our history, our politics, and our relationship with nature is crucial. Our goal through this ongoing project is to inspire these children to actively pay attention to how experiences gained through mindful movement and somatic dance could expand their mind, to help them reimagine their movement within constraints, and to help them create a production by the children themselves for the community, for their own community, in collaboration with us as their fellow artists. By researching how movement can be reimagined in confined spaces through a pedagogical improvisatory practice, our vision is to provide the children with movement tools and strategies to play with during periods of intense lockdown. A set of tools and strategies with which they could think. Our approach is through a contextual somatic lens and strategic improvisations. Somatics helps us understand as we move in the world what it is like to live in a sensing, intelligent body, noticing what happens inwardly and outwardly. But it was important for us that our research began with first having conversations and building our relationship with the community, specifically the children themselves, to better understand and contextualize our movement practices. We were scheduled to start in May, but as you know, Sri Lanka went into lockdown in May, and we've been in lockdown up until early October. And as you also know, these communities are under intense and heavily monitored isolation. And so we could not get permission or access into the community as a result, understandably. Many of them also lost people during curfew. Many of them hardly had meals to survive. And so through Avanka Fernando, we found out what was it we could help with during curfew. And so we helped raise some funds to support the purchase of dry rations. During this period, given curfew, we as artists, we were also going through our own emotions. I lost my mother to cancer during this time. And so we decided to focus on researching for ourselves what it means to move within confined spaces in our own homes, with our own emotions and our own stories, such as locking ourselves in the bathroom for intense periods and reimagining our movement as much as possible. How many ways can I move along this wall? How many different shapes can I create by the door? How many tiny gestural movements can I make on this one square of a tile? What is this teaching me? What is my body telling me? What am I feeling? By no means did we think that our own understanding of confinement was enough to help these children, because obviously what we understand as confinement is very different to what these children are experiencing. But because of COVID, we had no choice but to focus on what we could, in the hopes that it would help us when we do get a chance to learn, understand, and work with these children. Because embodiment is a process as much as it is a state of being, and therefore has implications for how we perceive, think, learn, and reflect. We are hopeful that we can begin our work sometime next year, but we need support. We will be doing a fundraiser early next year in the hopes of supporting the artists and the translators for at least 2 years' worth of engagement with these communities. We also need policymakers to engage with us as we engage with these children so that we can create a sustainable relationship for years to come. But more importantly, we need different thinkers, different art makers to join us. As a society of folks who appreciate art and education present here today, I encourage you. These children have only themselves for entertainment, only themselves to inspire each other. And while I have no doubt that their imaginations must be running wild, we all know that we all need some guidance, some love, some support to fuel and make our dreams come alive in more ways than we can ever imagine. They need exposure, they need different ways to learn, to relearn, to grow. They need different forms of art to help them understand themselves and to understand the world of possibilities. They need hope, they need care, they deserve more. Whether it is hosting workshops on and off in their premises or raising funds to help them set up a computer lab or community library, I'm not really sure exactly how, but do know that collectively, I know we can find multiple ways to help expand the way they think, learn, and grow. To help them build an environment in their own premises conducive for positive growth, awareness, and knowledge. I and the team at Meshground are doing this through movement and dance and encouraging them to learn through their bodies. And I know you can help in a lot of other different ways. Thank you for listening.